And good morning, Birds Nation. Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. It is a 10-1 Tuesday. There's only going to be one 10-1 Tuesday because there'll be either 10-2 next Tuesday or 11-1 by the time we get there. I appreciate you getting in with Mac here on Birds 365, episode number 670.
Wow, we haven't done that in a while. 670.
Yeah, 670 is a round number, so I figured I'd throw it out there today. Since we are talking numbers, and yes, we will talk some numbers, but there's a lot of storylines leading into this game against the 49ers, including the fact, John, that we did the show here yesterday on Birds 365. I did the show last night on WIP in Philadelphia. The fact that the Eagles are getting to 10-1, the way that they're winning football games, is a non-typical way. A lot of things are happening in the games that usually if you put up these quote-unquote numbers, and you can turn your nose up at analytics all you want, but it has a major impact on game. Decisions are made. Teams do things because of analytics, so we can try and deny the numbers all we want. There are certain analytics that say there's no freaking way the Eagles should be 10-1. They just keep finding ways, different ways to win, despite parts of the game not adding up the way that they usually do in an NFL victory. How do you think the coaches are handling that, John? If we all acknowledge that this is just different, doesn't mean it equates to 10-1. Anyway, you add it up, it's 10-1. And they, I guess, can continue to do it in this fashion and just continue to win games. Although experience and been down this road before would tell you at some point there's probably going to be a reversal and or a biting in the butt of the Philadelphia Eagles. How did the coaching staff handle that with the players? Do they emphasize it? Do they ignore it? Do they use it? Do they completely not acknowledge it? How does the coaching staff?
No, they acknowledge it. They like the fact that, it's good to make corrections when you win versus when you got to make corrections when you lose. So nobody's unhappy about winning these games. And you saw it a little bit with Jalen Hurts at the post-game press conference. He was a little conflicted, saying, essentially, we can't keep doing this. Eventually, it's going to bite us in the you-know-what. Coaches feel the same way. And we bring up last year, the Giants would be the most notable example. And look what's happened to them. Minnesota, look last night, look what's happened to them. If you can't count on the ball bouncing your way right every week, you might get a stretch. But again, 59-yard field goal might go the other direction and you're miserable for a week. So that's how razor thin Marquez Valdez-Scantling, catch the football and you're miserable for a week. And you're talking about they can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs no matter what they do. That's how close it's been. And they know that. And they know they haven't played their best football. They constantly bring that up, but it's pretty good when you haven't played your best football and you're 10-1.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good, but they are very aware that they have been living on that razor's edge, and that can't continue because the ball will bounce the other way eventually. And you don't want it bouncing the other way eventually in the playoffs. You want to be playing your best football at that point. But luckily they have some time to fix some things. And, it's hard to bet against them, as I always say, at this stage. But they have a lot of talent. The difference between them and teams that, for lack of a better word, get a little bit lucky, like the Giants last season, they have more talent. So there's more room to adjust and correct things.
And I'm sure that the coaching staff is going to do just that this week in preparation for the 49ers game. One of the things we'll find out during the course of the week today, will they put out their first injury estimate today?
Yes. Yes. This afternoon. No, sorry. Today's Tuesday. Forget what day. That's tomorrow. Today's coordinator day. Tomorrow they get back to a walkthrough on the practice field. That will be the first estimated injury reports of the week.
And there's some significant things that we need to find out. Some we may not find out till Sunday morning, day of game. The Eagles did sustain a couple of injuries. The biggest one was leading into the game when we found out Lane Johnson was going to go. At least what I've heard, please give me what you've heard, that this was the type of injury that he had a slight tear, but something that could absolutely heal. And that they would believe that as of now, and again, it can change between now. Shoot, a practice all week, right? And then all of a sudden on Sunday, yeah, Lane Johnson can't go. So I'm not going to make any definitive statements here. But what I have seen is it's the type of injury that if he gets off it for a good couple of days, doesn't do anything, they can heal up pretty quickly. What's your belief? Giving you as much latitude as you need to be able to change between now and Sunday. What do you think Lane Johnson's status is going to be?
Yeah, I think he's truly day to day. We know those designations that kind of started with Doug Peterson. When they use day to day, there's a chance that it could play. When they use week to week, that's an indication it's going to be a multiple week injury. The Eagles have kind of continued down that road. Basically, it's scar tissue that was broken down, is what I was told. So, yeah, he's not expected to be out long term. You know, everything factors in. Teams don't like to admit this. You know, if they lost against the Bills, I tell you, yeah, he's playing. But now that they beat the Bills and they have a little room, they might try to get through one more game and try to give them a little bit more of a break. But I truly do think it's day to day. And plus, Jack played well. Jack Driscoll played well. And he did. I watched the game again. The first play was the worst play he had. And then he kind of settled down and was really kind of solid. And the last time he had to play was against your Jets, and he was not solid.
No, that was good.
He was really poor. And if he played like that again, that would factor into it. But he really played a pretty solid game, especially in pass protection, which I would expect a little bit the other direction, maybe a little bit better of a run blocker. But he was really good. And I'm just pulling it up as I tell you, PFF had him as their best pass protector in the game.
Wow.
So he was solid, and I think that factors into it as well. That you know, maybe that Jets game was an anomaly, and the Jets, as you know, have a really talented front to begin with.
Yeah, speed up front. Yep.
Of course, so does San Francisco. So all of that factors into it. But he's truly day to day. There is a chance he can play.
And speaking of a chance that he can play, and it being a bit of a surprise, report last night, James Palmer from the NFL Network, NFL.com, said that Zach Goddard is pushing to play this week against San Francisco. When he got hurt and he fractured his arm just a couple of weeks ago, the speculation was pretty strong that, well, they'll put him on IR. So he's going to miss the next 4 games because the injury that he suffered, as it was generally described, was a 4 to 6 week injury or a 6 to 8 week injury, depending on the severity of the break. Dallas Goedert's going to come back in just over 2 weeks. He's trying to be back and missed only 2 games. That's
I'm sure he
optimistic.
Wants to play. Yeah, Dallas is another one of those guys. You go back to last season, he was back in the locker room about weeks 2 or 3 from the shoulder surgery, talking to us all the time. Certainly intimated, yeah, he'll be ready to go right after the 4 games. He was placed on IR last year. Certainly looked healthy, certainly indicated he was ready to go, and they held him out for a 5th game. Those guys always want to play for the most part, and it's not their decision. I would be stunned if he's back that quickly, but I'm not a doctor. I don't know how bad the fracture was. I don't. As you mentioned, I had heard the same timetables, 4 to 6 weeks. originally. And if that's the case, then yeah, he could say it all he wants. Sidney Brown said it earlier this season. He was ready to go. Well, not according to the Dodgers. So they have the final say.
Right, they're the only ones that count. But I'll just say this, and you've done a pretty good job of painting a picture of Goddard for us, that he's just a gung-ho kind of guy who will risk life and limb to get back out there on the field. I didn't see the X-ray, the MRI of his arm. If it's a bone in the middle of his arm, you can club that thing up. We saw Hassan Reddick playing with a lethal weapon on his hand earlier this year, right? There are certain areas that you can put a significant cast on. Now, if you're a tight end, you would think that your arm, you need more flexibility, but Dallas Goedert also takes much pride in his ability to block, and using a club there to help on those running plays that he's actually asked to block might not be the worst thing. If it's just a matter of playing in pain, then I think there's a good chance Goddard plays. If they can cast that thing up so as to cut down on the possibility of re-injury, refracturing, I guess there is a chance that Dallas Goedert could play this week.
Yeah, they could certainly use him. There's no doubt about that. They've been trying to get through this sort of absence a little bit differently than last year, playing a lot of 4 receivers, even playing some 2 running back sets instead of just throwing out Jack Stoll. And, part of that is Frank Alcantara is not available as well. He was in a walking boot last week with an ankle injury. Albert Okwuegbunam, everybody was excited about him, but hasn't manifested itself to this degree. I think he played 9 snaps against Buffalo, so not significant. Noah Tungiai played a few snaps. He's back again. Yeah, I mean, they could use him. No question about that.
And the other key injury, and I think I called Goddard Zach, a couple of guys on the stream immediately correcting me.
Conflating Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, no, I wasn't even. You know who I was conflating? Zach Cunningham and Dallas Goedert, because that's the next guy I was going to ask about. The hamstring that Cunningham injured in the game. I thought that would quickly increase the pursuit of Shaq Leonard for the Eagles. As in, I thought there could have been an announcement yesterday. There wasn't. Don't know if there'll be one today. There's reports out there that Leonard will be in Dallas today to work out for the Dallas Cowboys, who could also use a little bit of an upgrade at linebacker. We did touch on it on the show yesterday. I threw it out as a hypothetical for one of our 2 guests. If the bidding got up pretty damn quickly and the Eagles wanted him, needed him, would they be willing to pay the amount that he was supposed to make if he had just been claimed off of waivers? The Eagles chose not to claim him. No one in the National League chose to claim him. But when you got leverage, sometimes you can use that and add to your payday. Well, the Cowboys are certainly, if the report is accurate, that the Cowboys are bringing him for a workout. Oh, they're interested, which means if the Eagles really want him, if Cunningham's going to be missing time, not going to be good to go this week, it increases the value for Shaq Leonard, does it not?
A little bit, but yeah, when we were talking, I think you went a little bit too high, but we'll see how Dallas handles things. And if they, generally when you get somebody in the building and you really want them, you try to make sure they don't leave the building. And if they get them in that building, the Cowboys facility is pretty stinking impressive. So we'll see how things shake out today. I would say, and I don't want to talk about that Monday night game because it was an abomination, and I'll just say 2 things about it. One, Tom Brady and I were right. The product of NFL is at a historic low. And 2, TJ Edwards is a hell of a football player. He is a hell of a football player. And he's better than Tremaine Edmonds, who they gave 100 and I don't know how much money they gave him. They back up the Brinks truck. He's their best linebacker. He was making plays all over the field, Joe. Now, granted, I tapped out to watch CM Punk very early because that was, again, I wanted to poke my eyes out. But he is a heck of a football player. And I still cannot believe that the Eagles didn't take more pride in uncovering that, developing that, and because he got $6.5 million, which is a little bit a little bit too much for what the Eagles want to put into that position. I get it; they're very disciplined, very financially disciplined. Chicago's not, yada yada yada. I get all that stuff, but man, you could use TJ Edwards. I just wanted to throw him out because he is having a tremendous year for a bad football team, and that tells you a lot.
Yeah, I watched a little of that game, but I watched more Sixers beat down by 40 points of the LA Lakers than Monday Night Raw or Monday Night Football, to be truthful with you. Yeah, I did say I see Edwards make a bunch of plays. I guess Cinderella turned back into a pumpkin for Josh Dobbs. Huh? Well, wasn't he the darling of the NFL for a couple of weeks? Because
well, you know what? And I'm surprised more people aren't putting this 2 and 2 together. And I'm going way too much into this game than I wanted to. You know, he came in there and he was better left to his own devices because he was relying on his athleticism and his athletic gifts. And now they got him under center like he's Kirk Cousins playing play action, and he's awful. That's terrible coaching. There's no read option. There's no design running plays. That's what he does. That's what he does well. They got him lining up like he's Kirk Cousins. Guess what he doesn't do well, Jody? Throw the football like Kirk Cousins. That is a perfect example of poor coaching. And by no means am I trying to say Josh Dobbs is a good player, because he's not a good player, but you try to accentuate the strengths of a particular player. I think they had one design run. I looked at they got him. They want him to be, one of the best throwers of the football in the NFL. You don't change your offense. That's bad. So he would, when a player is better day one, he steps in the building, and after you get him for a month and get him to coach, that's a bad sign, Jody.
Isn't that one of the bright young geniuses of the
National That's why League? Hey, look, all these coaches, they know a hell of a lot. I don't have that type of ego, and some people do in my industry that think that they know better than coaches, because I don't, and they've all forgotten more football than I know. But when something's that glaring, it does stand out. And the fact that he was better the day he stepped into that building than he is a month later, they're using him wrong. He lines up under center. How many times you see Jalen Hurts line up under center? Nick Sirianni wanted to run Phillip Rivers. He started. If you go back to the ugly 2-5 start, Jalen was throwing it too much. They were putting too much on his plate. He scaled back. He talked to Matt Campbell about the RPO game at the college level. He talked to Brian Johnson about the RPO level. He remade the offense. That's coaching. Accentuate the strengths of your players. The exact opposite happened last night.
Again, one last comment on last night's game, because it really doesn't deserve as much commenting. It was kind of a tough watch for when I was tuned to it. The Minnesota offense may be very questionable. Their defense is still pretty damn good. You and I are both Flores fans. That kid Metellus was everywhere on the field. Player. As good as Edwards was, Metellus was better on the other side, forcing fumbles, coming up, stopping.
Yeah, by the way, you remember when we had Ben Lieber on? I asked Ben about Josh Metellus. I said, that guy can play, man.
Yeah. He was
he's a good player. But then again, even with Brian Flores, and we got to get to Ed, and I'm talking too much. I love Brian Flores, as you know. He plays the whole game one way, and then they got to stop Chicago at the end of the game, and he plays 3-man coverage and lets Justin Fields run around. I don't get it. I don't get these guys. I don't get it. And he's a great coach. He's a great coach.
Fields, who had been pretty pure. Well, he was 12 for 12 to start the game. It was
all bubble screens. It was all behind the line of scrimmage.
Pekin Valley game for Fields. He just threw a laser 38-yard pass down the field to get him in the field goal range. He hadn't done diddly for 2 quarters, and then all of a sudden he makes a great play.
Can't let a guy like that run around and take time, because he does have good arm. And he did it the whole game, and he made the kid look terrible. And then when the game's on the line, he's 3-man rush, zone coverage. It's bizarre.
As I said on WIP last night, if you determine a game to be a good game because it's decided in the 59th minute, then last night's Bears-Viking game was a good game. Yeah, not really. If you determine it by it was a good game and it was exciting throughout, then you get the Eagles versus the Bills, 2 very different games that basically were decided the same at the very last second. All right, no more last seconds. We move on. I see him in our waiting room. He is an actual individual, not artificial intelligence. Ed Kratz of Sports Illustrated joins us next here on Birds 365.